A poor village girl, Amara, hears desperate cries in the forest and discovers a man tied up with a lion ready to attack. Without a second thought, she risks her life to save him, unaware he hides a secret that could change everything. Let's dive into the story to find the answer. In a small African village, where the golden sun blazed high above and the air carried the earthy scent of red soil, life moved slowly, tied to the rhythm of survival. The huts were made of mud and thatched roofs, clustered together in the heart of the village. Children could be seen running barefoot along the dusty paths, their laughter echoing as they carried water from the river in clay pots balanced skillfully upon their heads. Women pounded grain with heavy wooden pestles, their rhythmic thuds creating a steady beat, while the men worked in the fields, coaxing life from the stubborn soil. Amid this simple yet harsh existence lived a poor girl named Amara. Amara's life was not one of comfort or luxury. From the moment she woke up, she was burdened with the duties that poverty demanded. Each day, before the village rooster crowed, she would tie a worn piece of cloth around her waist and set out into the vast forest to gather firewood. Her small feet, hardened by years of walking barefoot on rough paths, carried her deeper into the woods, where the tall trees cast long shadows and the songs of birds accompanied her solitude. Her hands, though young, bore calluses and tiny scars, silent reminders of the struggle to keep her family alive. Yet despite the weight of hardship, there was something within her that shone brighter than the African sun. Behind her tired eyes lived a spirit of courage, a spark of kindness, and a strength few could see, but all would one day come to know. The villagers often said that Amara's heart was too big for her small frame. She shared what little she had, offering water to thirsty travelers, food to hungry children, and comfort to those who were broken. Her compassion was her only wealth, and it was spoken of in hushed tones by elders who believed that fate had marked her for something greater than the life she was living. Still, Amara never thought of herself as special. She only knew that life was cruel and kindness was the only way she could fight against it. One evening, as the burning sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of crimson and gold, Amara carried her bundle of firewood on her back and made her way home. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the chirping of crickets preparing for night, and the distant roar of unseen creatures. She wiped the sweat from her brow, her body weary, yet her spirit unbroken. It was in that moment, just as the last light of day slipped behind the trees, that she heard it. A sound, faint at first, a cry, a voice. Amara stopped in her tracks, her heart skipping a beat. She held her breath, straining her ears. It came again, desperate, broken, almost swallowed by the forest. It wasn't the call of an animal. No hyena, no bird, no beast of the night made such a sound. It was human. It was a man's voice, trembling, pleading, as though life itself was slipping from his grasp. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. Fear clashed with curiosity inside her chest. She looked around, the trees swaying gently as the wind whispered through their branches. The cries grew louder, echoing off the trunks, drawing her deeper into the unknown. Amara followed the sound, her heart pounding harder with every step she took. The cries echoed through the trees, pulling her deeper and deeper into the forest. The familiar paths of gathering firewood were long behind her now. Here, the trees grew thicker, their branches weaving a canopy that allowed only streaks of moonlight to fall upon the ground. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of damp earth and the distant growls of unseen animals. This was the part of the forest where few villagers dared to go, for it was said to be the hunting ground of lions. Still, Amara pressed forward, each step filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Her bare feet pressed silently against the soil, her breathing quick and uneven. With every rustle in the bushes, her body tensed, her mind painting images of predators lurking in the shadows. The cries became clearer, more desperate,
and with them came the unmistakable sound of struggle, the sound of ropes straining, a voice breaking, and the silence of danger waiting to strike.
Then, through the thick trees, she saw it, and her heart nearly stopped. There, in a small clearing lit by the pale glow of the moon, was a man tied tightly to the trunk of a tree. His clothes were torn, as if he had been dragged across the ground. His skin glistened with sweat, and his face was pale with terror. The ropes dug into his wrists, leaving red marks as he struggled helplessly. His chest rose and fell rapidly, every breath carrying the weight of fear. But that was not what froze Amara where she stood. Just a few feet away from the man, low against the ground, crouched a lion. Its massive body rippled with silent strength, its golden eyes glowing like fire in the darkness. The beast's tail swayed slowly from side to side, its muscles tense, ready to pounce. The sound of its deep growl vibrated through the clearing, and the smell of its breath carried on the night air. Amara's own breath caught in her throat. She had grown up hearing stories of lions, of hunters who faced them, of travelers who never returned from the forest. But never had she stood face to face with such a creature. The lion's gaze was locked entirely on the man tied to the tree. The man's lips trembled as he forced out a cry, his voice breaking under the weight of terror. "Help me, please!" The words cut into the silence, sharp and desperate. Amara's body froze. She was just a poor village girl, barefoot and empty-handed. She had no weapon, no strength compared to the beast before her. The firewood she had gathered was far behind her, abandoned when she first heard the cries. She was alone, and the forest seemed to close in around her, urging her to flee. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, to run, to save herself. But something inside her refused. It was not logic, nor bravery born of training or strength. It was something deeper, an unshakable spirit that had always lived quietly within her. The same spirit that made her share food when she barely had enough for herself. The same spirit that had carried her through years of hardship without breaking. Now, standing before death itself, that spirit whispered a single truth. She could not abandon him. Her knees trembled, her heart thundered, but she stood rooted in place. The lion shifted, its eyes flicking toward her for just a moment, as though sizing her up, deciding if she too was prey. The clearing felt smaller, the air tighter as the three of them, girl, man, and beast, hung in a balance that could shatter at any second. Amara did not know how, or what she would do. She only knew one thing. She would not run. And in that moment, though she did not realize it yet, her life stepped onto a path that would change everything forever. As the lion edged closer, its golden eyes fixed upon the helpless man tied to the tree, Amara's body shook with fear. The ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble with each heavy step the beast took. Its powerful shoulders rolled forward, its massive paws silent on the earth, its breath hot and heavy as it snarled low, preparing to strike. The night air was thick with tension, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. Amara's heart thundered in her chest, but she refused to let terror chain her feet. Her gaze darted around desperately, and that was when her eyes fell on something. Her bundle of firewood, the sticks she had carried through the forest. Among them was a burning branch, still glowing red at the tip, smoldering like a small piece of fire in the darkness. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She knew the lion's strength, knew the danger before her, yet she also knew she had no choice. If she ran, the man would die. If she froze, both of them would perish. With shaking fingers, she gripped the burning stick, the heat biting into her skin. Summoning every ounce of courage she had, Amara lifted it high and took a step forward. Her voice, usually soft and gentle, broke into fierce screams. She shouted with all her strength, her cries sharp and wild, echoing through the forest like the roar of an unseen spirit. The sound carried through the trees, startling birds into flight, sending their wings flapping into the night sky. She waved the fire wildly, thrusting it toward the lion, the flames casting jagged shadows across the clearing. The lion stopped, its muscles tightening, its ears pinned back against its head. It roared, a sound so deep and powerful that it shook Amara's bones. The beast clawed at the ground, tearing the earth beneath it, its tail lashing like a whip. But for the first time, the predator hesitated. The fire's light flickered in its eyes, and Amara's unrelenting cries broke through the silence of fear. Slowly, step by step, the lion began to retreat. It snarled once more, its teeth gleaming in the dim light, but it no longer advanced. With one final roar that echoed like thunder, the beast turned and slipped into the shadows of the forest, its massive form swallowed by the darkness until only silence remained. Amara stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Sweat dripped from her brow, and the burning stick nearly fell from her trembling hand. Her entire body shook, not only from fear, but from the realization of what she had just done. She, a poor village girl with nothing but courage, had faced down a lion and lived. Behind her, the sound of collapsing drew her attention. The man tied to the tree had sunk to the ground, his legs too weak to carry him, his voice cracking as he gasped, You saved my life." His words trembled with disbelief, gratitude, and something deeper, an awe at the bravery of the girl who had stood where most would have fled. Amara quickly dropped the stick and hurried to him, her fingers working to untie the ropes that cut into his skin. Each knot came loose under her determined hands, until finally the man was free. He rubbed his raw wrists, his eyes meeting hers. There was something strange in them, something hidden, like secrets buried too deep to speak aloud. Yet for all the mystery he carried, one truth was undeniable. Gratitude shone in his expression, raw and unmasked, a silent acknowledgement of the courage she had shown. Amara, breathing hard, studied him with curiosity. Who was this stranger? Why had he been left bound in the middle of the forest, abandoned as prey for a lion? Questions swirled in her mind, but answers remained hidden behind the man's weary gaze. All she knew was that fate had led her here, and in that moment, their lives had become forever intertwined.
They walked slowly back toward the village, the forest quiet now, except for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures awakening in the night. The man's steps were unsteady at first, his body still trembling from the ordeal. But Amara stayed close beside him, carrying a calm strength that steadied the path forward. Neither spoke for a long while. The silence between them was heavy, yet strangely comforting, as though both were lost in the enormity of what had just happened. When he finally found his voice, it was low, almost hesitant. He did not ask about the lion or about how she had dared to face such danger. Instead, his questions were simple, personal. "What is your name?" he asked, his tone carrying both curiosity and quiet respect. "Amara," she replied softly, her eyes fixed on the faint trail ahead that led out of the forest. "And why?" His voice faltered, as if the words were difficult to form. "Why would you risk everything? For me, a stranger you do not even know?"
Amara paused, her lips curling into the faintest of smiles, one that carried sadness and truth in equal measure. "Because no one deserves to die alone in the forest," she said gently, her voice steady, though her heart still beat fast from what had happened. The man turned his head, studying her as they walked, his gaze sharp and searching. To anyone else, her words might have sounded simple, but to him they struck deep, as though each syllable carried the weight of gold. He saw no hesitation in her eyes, no calculation, no expectation of reward, only sincerity born of hardship and compassion. The forest around them began to thin, the path widening as the distant glow of the village fires flickered in the darkness ahead.
For the villagers who would later see him, he would be nothing more than another traveler saved by chance. Another story whispered in passing about the girl who had once again proven her courage. But for Amara, this man was different. He was not just a stranger she had stumbled upon. His presence felt heavier, as if destiny itself had placed him in her path for reasons far beyond her understanding.
Still, she did not question him. Poverty had taught her not to expect answers, and life had taught her to accept the mysteries it placed before her. For Amara, saving him had been instinct, an act of humanity, nothing more. Yet something in the way he carried himself, even weary and wounded, hinted that there was far more to his story than she could yet imagine. The man, too, remained quiet as they neared the edge of the village, but within his silence lived a storm of thoughts. The courage she had shown, the fire she had wielded against the lion, the selfless heart behind her actions, all of it echoed in his mind. She had not asked his name. She had not questioned why he had been tied to that tree or who might have wanted him left for dead. To her, he was simply a life worth saving, and that truth unsettled him. For in his world, trust and kindness were rare treasures, often bought and sold like everything else. As the first lights of the village flickered into view, Amara felt a strange sense of completion, as though her task was finished. She had saved a man's life and returned him safely from the jaws of the forest. What more could there be? To her, the story was ending, but in reality, it was only beginning. For Amara had no idea that the man walking quietly beside her was not merely a traveler. His world stretched far beyond the simple huts and dusty paths of her village. His name, his power, and his wealth were hidden now, but soon they would be revealed. And when they were, her life would change in ways she could not yet begin to imagine. The next morning, as the sun rose slowly over the quiet African village, its rays painted the mud huts in shades of gold and warmth, but something unusual stirred the air. A deep rumble grew louder on the dusty road that cut through the settlement, a sound none of the villagers had ever heard before. The children stopped their games, women paused with their clay pots on their heads, and the elders stepped out into the open, squinting against the bright light. The noise came closer, and then, suddenly, a fleet of sleek black cars rolled into the heart of the village, their polished surfaces reflecting the morning sun like mirrors of another world. The vehicles moved with an authority that silenced every voice. The villagers stood frozen, their bare feet pressed into the earth, their eyes wide with confusion and awe. These were not the carts or bicycles they were used to. No, this was something entirely different, something foreign, powerful, and intimidating. When the doors of the first car swung open, tall men in sharp black suits stepped out. Their shoes barely touched the dust, their movements precise and deliberate. They carried themselves like guardians of kings. Without hesitation, they rushed to the man Amara had rescued, bowing their heads with respect, their voices filled with urgency and concern as they addressed him not as a stranger, but as someone of immense importance. The villagers gasped, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Could this really be the same helpless man tied to a tree, one who had begged for his life in the forest just the night before? Amara stood among them, her heart pounding, her hands trembling as the truth unfolded before her eyes. The men called him by a name that echoed with weight and authority, a name she had never heard, but one that carried power. Then, the shocking revelation came to light. He was not an ordinary traveler. He was not a poor victim wandering lost in the wilderness. He was one of Africa's hidden billionaires, a man whose empire stretched across nations, whose companies provided work to thousands, whose influence reached palaces and governments. His wealth was beyond measure, far greater than anything Amara or her people had ever imagined. The villagers stared, their mouths open, struggling to reconcile the image of a bound and desperate man with the truth now revealed before them. The children whispered, the women gasped, and the elders lowered their heads in disbelief. But Amara, she stood frozen, her body still, her soul caught between shock and something deeper, a memory that would never leave her. She could still see the lion's glowing eyes, still feel the weight of fear pressing down on her chest as she had stood trembling with only a burning stick in her hand, still hear his desperate plea for help. That moment had been real, raw, and life-threatening. And now, here he stood, no longer helpless but powerful beyond measure, his face transformed not by fear, but by gratitude. Slowly, he turned to her. His eyes searched hers, and in them she saw not the arrogance of a wealthy man, but the deep respect of someone who had seen true courage. His voice, calm yet commanding, carried across the silent village. "You saved me," he said, his voice steady, "not knowing who I was, not caring about wealth or power. You risked your life when you had nothing to gain. That is the rarest kind of bravery." His words hung in the air like a blessing, echoing into every heart that listened. The villagers shifted, some with pride, others with wonder, all looking at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. She stood there barefoot, her clothes worn, her body tired from years of hardship, but in that moment she was greater than all of them. Then the man continued, his tone softening, his eyes locked on her with a promise. "From today, your life will never be the same." And in that instant, Amara knew the lion had not just tested her courage, it had opened the door to a destiny she never dared to dream.
This time I'm making a video for you guys. I hope you enjoy my video. If you enjoy my video, please share with your family and friend. If you enjoy my video, please like. If you like my video, I make more videos for you. I hope you enjoy this video a lot. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and share with your family, friends, and family members, because I make moral stories for everyone. I hope you understand my language.